G'day, it's fugitive Australian journalist Shane Dowling from the website and YouTube channel Kangaroo Court of Australia. Now, Federal Senator Linda Reynolds is currently suing Brittany Higgins and her partner David Shiraz in the Western Australian Supreme Court. And that started last Friday and is meant to run for approximately 4 weeks. And one of the key issues there that Linda Reynolds says she's going to try and prove, and her lawyers told the court that they're going to try and prove, is the fact that there was no cover-up in the rape of Brittany Higgins back in 2019. Well, as you're about to see, Scott Morrison, his office, and specifically his staff, obviously thought there was a cover-up back in March 2021, just after it broke, the story, because Scott Morrison set up the Gaetjens inquiry about who of his staff knew what and when in 2019 when the rape happened. And the inquiry was obviously set up to try and cover up exactly what his staff knew and when, because if Scott Morrison had revealed that, well, the cover-up would have been exposed. One of the key elements of it is that when Scott Morrison set up the Gaetjens inquiry, his staff refused to cooperate with it unless they were represented by lawyers. And that was reported by Laura Tingle on the 7:30 report, and I wrote about it a couple of days later, and no other media touched it. They wouldn't go anywhere near it. Phil Gaetjens was asked about it at a Senate estimates hearing a couple of days later about why the staff were refusing to cooperate unless they had lawyers representing them. Scott Morrison was asked the same thing in Parliament but failed to answer because the Speaker interjected and made sure he wasn't able to answer. So I'll read you part of the article I published on the issue back in 2021, and then I'll show you the video 7:30 report putting the lies together in relation to Phil Gaetjens lying and deceiving the Senate inquiry, or Senate estimates hearing, actually. So on the 21st of March 2021, I published an article titled "Scott Morrison's Office Staff Lawyer Up Because They Do Not Trust Him" regarding the Brittany Higgins alleged rape cover-up back in 2021. It was only an alleged rape. Now we know with the judgment in the defamation case, we can actually call it a rape now. And in that article, I quote the ABC 7:30 report broadcast on Wednesday, the 17th of March, 2021. And I got the transcript where Lee Sales says, "Can you give us an update, Laura, please, on the Gaetjens review, which is the one that is looking into who knew what in the Prime Minister's office about the Brittany Higgins case?" And Laura Tingle says, "Yes, you would think that it wasn't all that complicated, Lee, that the Prime Minister could just go and ask his staff, but he has got the head of his department to investigate this. He has told Parliament today he still hasn't got that report. He still has not said whether it will be made public, and there are suggestions that there are quite a lot of lawyers involved now, with staff wanting to make sure that their positions are protected in whatever they say to the Gaetjens review. So that might be why the whole review has been slowed down." And I go on and say in the article, Scott Morrison has had since last week to deny the allegation by the 7:30 report that his staff have lawyered up. And if it wasn't true, he would have denied it very quickly, as it is very damaging for his reputation, the morale of all Parliament House staff. But he has refused to deny it, which would be the talk of Parliament House staffers. On Monday, the 22nd of March, 2021, Scott Morrison was asked in Parliament if his staff had hired lawyers, but the Speaker of the House interjected and refused to allow the question. And Phil Gaetjens was also asked the same question in the Senate hearing on Monday, but he refused to answer. There was nothing stopping Scott Morrison or Phil Gaetjens from answering the question. Almost all of the media have missed a story about Scott Morrison's staff lawyering up, but to me, it is probably one of the biggest stories of the last few weeks because his staff know Scott Morrison well, as they work with him 5 days a week, and they don't trust him at all, which is the ultimate insult for Morrison. It is also the ultimate insight for all voters to form a view of Morrison's trustworthiness. And it's a huge failure given his staff have such a low level of trust in Morrison that they are hiring lawyers to protect themselves from him. Now, a few days after that report on the 7:30 report, on Monday, the 22nd of March, 2021, Laura Tingle did a story on the Gaetjens inquiry and the cover-up, because Phil Gaetjens was exposed lying to the Senate hearing. Because while he was giving answers at another Senate hearing at the same time, Reece Kershaw, the Commissioner of the AFP, was also at a different Senate estimates hearing answering questions. And Phil Gaetjens told his hearing that he'd been told by the AFP that he can't continue with the inquiry into who knew what and when in the Prime Minister's office. But the Australian Federal Police Commissioner Reece Kershaw gave a different answer to his inquiry. So Gaetjens was busted lying. So I'll play the 7:30 report story from the 22nd of March 2021 now. And this story is very important to the current defamation case because at the end of it, they talk about the fact that Linda Reynolds' position as Defence Minister is untenable. So I'll play it now.
Order. I will take that on notice.
This is not being dealt with openly.
We would not want to complicate any investigation.
Have you had discussions with the clerk?
In relation to the alleged sexual assault in the ministerial wing, as a criminal investigation is now in progress, it is inappropriate for me to add anything further in this forum.
You're not going to answer any question at all about anything.
I'm attempting to be as full and frank as I can in this forum.
In an era in which question time has become known for, well, a lack of answers, Senate Estimates Committee hearings have come to be seen as the last hope for getting any real answers out of government about what is going on, particularly when it comes to things the government would rather not tell us about.
The scope of what you have claimed is beyond precedent of the Senate.
But today was something else. Citing police investigations, the government repeatedly closed down all avenues of questions about the Brittany Higgins investigation in two separate committees, grilling officials from the Department of the Senate, the Australian Federal Police, the Department of Parliamentary Services and the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet. The most contentious exchange concerned what has become known as the Gaetjens inquiry. That is, the inquiry ordered by the Prime Minister, conducted by the Secretary of his department, to find out who in the Prime Minister's office knew what about the alleged rape on a ministerial couch of Brittany Higgins.
I want to know, and that's why I've asked the Secretary of my department to actually test that advice that I've received.
It is now a month since Phil Gaetjens began his inquiry, and last week the opposition was getting more and more restive about when we would get to see his findings.
This work is being done by the Secretary of my department.
Now, he has not provided me with a further update about when I might expect that report, but I have no doubt the opposition will be able to ask questions of him in Senate estimates next week.
So it was a bit of a shock to senators today when Mr Gaetjens revealed his inquiry had been effectively parked for weeks.
On the 9th of March, the AFP Commissioner informed me it would be strongly advisable to hold off finalising the records of interviews with staff until the AFP could clarify whether the criminal investigation into Ms Higgins' sexual assault allegations may traverse any issues covered by the administrative process I was undertaking. As a result, I have put on hold the process of finalising documentation of my inquiries and the preparation of a report to the Prime Minister. I also told the Prime Minister of that.
So, the Prime Minister was told on March 9 that the inquiry was on ice, and then told Parliament just last week he'd had no update on timing. But that's not all. Just downstairs, the head of the Federal Police was giving evidence that didn't exactly gel with Mr Gaetjens' account.
Have you asked the Secretary to stall, pause or alter his investigation?
No.
You are making a decision here to cover up your inquiry, to pause your inquiry as a result of your own decision, not as a result of advice in the AFP.
I don't believe that's correct, Senator.
I think the evidence demonstrates that, Mr Gaetjens. We have the AFP Commissioner saying there's no reason why you would stop your inquiry. You are now telling us, I'm stopping the inquiry and I'm not answering any questions. That is entirely a political decision. It is not a legal or policing decision, and it is one you are making.
There were also questions in estimates hearings today about what the Prime Minister had been told about the allegations of an historical rape by the nation's first law officer, Attorney General Christian Porter, but with equally little information gained along the way. The wider shockwaves from all these events continue, with increasing questions about how tenable it is for Linda Reynolds, who should have been attending Senate estimates today but remains on sick leave until the end of the month, to continue as Defence Minister.
Now, as we all know, there never was a Gaetjens report. If there was, it obviously hit the rubbish bin or the shredder, quick, smart, as soon as Scott Morrison lost the 2022 election. So for Linda Reynolds trying to make out in her defamation case there was no cover-up, well, that's a joke. And as far as Justice Michael Lee in the Bruce Lerman defamation case finding there was no cover-up, well, did he watch that video I just played? And what did he say about Scott Morrison's own staff wiring up for the Gaetjens report? Well, Justice Lee never said anything. Justice Lee wasn't in a position to find there was no cover-up. And as I wrote a couple of weeks ago, turns out Justice Lee was in Rupert Murdoch's hip pocket, showing up to the Australian 60th birthday celebration, which is owned by Rupert Murdoch. Wonder if Linda Reynolds got an invite to the Australian 60th birthday. Anyhow, Kangaroo Court of Australia's independent media. I publish a website and a YouTube channel, and I'm 100% crowdfunded from viewers like yourself. So please support my Patreon account. Currently have 438 patrons donating $2,427 a month, and I need to almost double that to become financially viable. And you can donate any amount, $3, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30, $40, $50 a month, whatever suits your budget. It all helps out in a big way. A link for the Patreon account will be below this video on YouTube and also on my website. And please share this video on social media, and please hit the like and subscribe button. Other than that, thank you for your time and have a good day.